Hello and welcome to this session on B4b for Microsoft Dynamics Great Plains. B4b is a module designed and developed by Professional Advantage. Professional Advantage are the largest Microsoft business solution provider in Australia and have many years' experience across the entire Microsoft business suite. We have more than 20 regional and global Microsoft awards and are a member of the President's Club. We are also a major Microsoft ISV for enhancement solutions around Dynamics Great Plains and Xapta products. B4b is part of the Professional Advantage Cash Management Suite. The Cash Management Suite is composed of two separate modules that can be taken individually or together as required. B4b, the first of these modules, is a link between Microsoft Dynamics GP payments and your bank's payment upload functionality. The second module, Email Pro, allows for the simple generation of remittances and the dispatch of these to your suppliers after a payment run at the click of a button. B4b provides a link between the payable module within Microsoft Dynamics GP and your bank's own electronic funds transfer functionality. It allows for the simple upload of both domestic and international payments. It is easy to use and yet sophisticated, catering for today's global banking requirements, including the complexities associated with international payments which are not easily catered for from within GP itself. The key benefits of B4b include the support of CHAPS, faster payments and single European payment area payments, BACs and many other payment types across the globe. We have a large library of existing formats for domestic and international payments to draw down on, and we are also constantly developing new formats to support different banks and new payment types. They allow for multinational organizations to set up a global payment operation from a single source. B4b is both powerful and secure. It has an approval matrix to assist in fraud prevention, and the system itself allows for the capture of bank details within B4b. From there, changes to these bank details can lead to an approval process, whereby a notification is sent to a manager within the organization who can then log back into B4b to approve the related change. The system is secure, with all key data encrypted within the database itself, and it has audit reporting and tracking for all changes and for payment batches that are generated. System audit includes password control and rules. Recently, B4b caters for PGB encryption, whereby the file produced by B4b for upload to your bank can be encrypted using a PGP format and then unencrypted by the bank during the upload. This improves security and allows for better audit control. B4b is very easy to use. Embedded links within the Microsoft Dynamics GP environment provide a seamless process for users linking to B4b functionality. For people who are used to using the Microsoft Dynamics screens, this means that it is a very simple system to use. It eliminates manual processing and allows transfer to the bank without complexity for the user, but providing rich functionality in the background to cater for international and domestic payments. One touch to create files and send these to the bank, and then a further touch to notify beneficiaries with an e-remittance if you are using Email Pro, means simple, fast and effective processing. Directing payments into your bank's own delivery channel without having to rekey data improves accuracy and saves time. The return on your investment in B4b is very simply articulated for Microsoft Dynamics Great Plains users. Simply, it saves time and effort in payment transfer activity. The module reduces inaccuracy and effort spent rekeying the data and the cost of this in your AP staff time. The module's functionality reduces the costs through use of your bank's own payment services rather than having to use an agency for payment processing. It brings international and domestic transfers into the same framework for clarity of understanding, and it is a global solution that can be implemented quickly and is used by many organizations worldwide for their payment processing. We're now going to show you a simple demonstration of the B4b functionality, but on the screen in front of you we have a value statement from one of our previous very happy customers.
Here we're going to look at B4b against Microsoft Dynamics GP version 10. B4b is a standalone application that sits outside of Dynamics. So the first thing that we're going to have a look at is a set of administrative functions that control the user access, security, and some other setup functions within the system. So here I'm going to log into B4b as the super user. to gain access through to the administrator functions. So there's a number of functions here to consider around the setup of the system, and these are usually fairly low maintenance once the software has been implemented. So here we can see we've got a number of functions around user details, additional company options, report locations, remittance options, registration, and so on. So I'm just going to run through each of these functions to give you an overview of what each area does. So the first thing to consider with B4b is our user details. So here you can have any number of named users within the B4b system, and the software license will control the number of concurrent logins that you're allowed. Before we can consider our users, we need to have a think about our user groups and how we're going to assign different roles within the system and different permissions. So if we go into the group definitions, again, here we can have any number of operator groups and assign permissions at a group level, and then obviously assign the users to that particular group. So a normal segregation of duties that we might consider would be a set of administrators, a set of approvers around changes to the bank details, a team of bank detail users who can only maintain the static data held in B4b, and potentially a team of payables users who are only processing the payment batches. But again, this is very flexible, and we can even go to the level of having a group per user to really control the different roles and segregation of duties within the system. So here my group of administrators, we can see here, is looking directly at Great Plains, at the companies within the system. And we're going to be looking at the Fabricam Inc. company. And here we can see the admin group has access to this company and then access to all of the top-level functions. Obviously, a group can have access to one or many companies. The next level of permissions we need to have a look at is our format permissions. And when we refer to a format in B4b, we're referring to the actual format of the output file that's created. So here on my system we can see I've got pretty much all of the bank modules installed, but obviously on your system you'd only see the one or two formats that you've been licensed for. So if we pick a format, we can see now we're assigning permissions to allow the admin group on the Fabricam Inc. company to use this particular payment module. And again, as it's the administrator, we can give full permissions. So if I go back to the group ID, and let's have a look at something like maybe a payables group, we can see here we have limited permissions, so only functions for processing payments from Great Plains, and then at a format level, so here for example, we can create the bank file. So setting up the permissions is very easy, very straightforward, and can be very flexible to meet the requirements of the different roles within your company. So we go back to the main menu and let's have another look at our user details. So again, here we can have any number of named users, and the users can be named however you choose. And there is also an option to use your Windows login for your B4b user IDs. And we can then use an authenticated launch of the B4b module. So here is a simple case of creating our user, specifying a password. Obviously, if we're using an authenticated login, the password is ignored. And then we can simply assign that user to a group. The email address here is used for the approval layer within B4b. So if we have applied approval control around the bank detail changes, then we can use the system to send notification emails to the designated approvers. So that's really our users and groups. If we go back to the main menu, we can now have a look at our company options. And company options are really just for extending the functionality within B4b, and primarily for allowing our single payment module. Now, the single payment module in B4b allows you to make one-off or miscellaneous sundry payment from a generic creditor account in Great Plains. And we can then use an identifier on the payment transaction to link the payment from that generic creditor sundry account through to a temporary bank detail that's held within B4b. So it means we don't need to go through and create all the cards within Great Plains for that one-off payment. There are also a number of other applications for this, where we can include the creditor code and the remit to address as the key to our bank detail. So if you're using different remit to addresses when you're using transaction entry in Great Plains, then we can specify or set B4b to look at that combination of creditor and remit to address to find the corresponding bank detail. So the company options is really just all about extending the functionality around the extract process within B4b. Report locations, again, this is a one-off setup function. It's purely for specifying where the reports that B4b are going to create are held within the system. So B4b will create a number of reports during the payables process, firstly when extracting the data from Great Plains, and then again when creating the output file ready for upload to your bank. And here the norm is to set a general default and store all of the reports within the database. However, we can have different locations based on users, groups, and companies and so on if needed. So remittance options within B4b allows us to create a basic remittance document. So on completion of the payment, we can then optionally email that remittance document directly through to the creditor so that they have a notification of the payment that's being made and the invoices that it relates to. So should you wish to enable the remittance system within B4b, then within the administrator options, we can switch on remittance functionality and also enable the email production if required. And here we can also have different email options based on your operator groups. So if you have different groups in different countries, for example, then we can have different emailing options for those if needed. So registration, B4b will be supplied with a registration file that controls the number of concurrent logins to the system and also the bank formats that have been purchased. And it's the administrator's role to apply and update that registration. The administrator can also reset any password, and here we can also apply a password policy either at a default system level, or we can have different password policies at a group level. So here we can specify the password expiry type and period, a warning, the number of unique passwords before a password can be used again, and here the minimum password length. Again, if we're using an authenticated login, which we'll have a look at shortly, then the password policy becomes obsolete because you're using your Windows account to log into B4b. Audit options in B4b allows us to track changes to the key data held within the B4b system. So primarily the bank details. And once audit control has been enabled at a company level, then B4b will record all changes to that key system data. And the audit trail is very detailed in that it records at a column level the value before the change, the value after the change, the reason for the change, and obviously who and when the change was made. The administrator can then run reports against the audit data and parameterized reports so we can see exactly who's been changing what information in the system. The audit reporting is also then available to the approvers. So when we're looking at approving a bank detail change request, the approver has the ability to drill down into the audit data to see exactly the information that has been changed, so they can then action their approval decision on that data. So B4b has a backup and restore function. However, all of the B4b tables are held within the Dynamics database itself. So as long as we're using a regular backup of the Dynamics database, then the entire B4b dataset will be included in that backup. Backup and restore within B4b can be used if we build the system in a test environment, for example, and then on sign-off of that testing phase, we can take a backup of the entire build and then install against your live environment and restore the build directly in. So we have a turnkey solution for go live using backup and restore in B4b. Finally, here we've got our approval control layer. And again, this can be at a system level, or we can have different approval details per company. So here on Fabricam Inc., approval is required. So any changes to bank details held in B4b will be subjected to an approval process. And we can have a number of parameters around our approval. So forcing a reason for change, for example. And then again, here we can enable an email notification. So once a user makes a change to a bank detail, it will force them, in this case, to enter a reason as to why they're changing that record, and then email the designated approver with that information. Then once the approver has reviewed and subsequently approved those changes, an email will be sent back to the originator. So that's our administrator options. As I say, these are all sort of addressed during the initial implementation phase, and once the system has been configured, are fairly low maintenance going forward. So let's log into B4b now as a normal user. So I'm just going to log in as our admin user. And this takes us into the user details. So here the first level of access permissions is now being applied, in that this particular group only has access to the specified companies at their group level. So now from the B4b main menu, you can see that we have a number of functions. Again, these are controlled by our group and format level permissions. So on the left here we have a set of company actions, and this is primarily top level functions for extracting the payment information from Great Plains. And then on the right we have our format specific actions. So these are functions tailored for the particular bank and payment type that you're going to be using. So tailored for the format of the output file. So if we pick one of our formats, and we're going to be using some JP Morgan formats for this example, then we can see here we have a number of format-specific functions. And the beauty here in B4b is all of these functions are tailored, in this case, for JP Morgan global wire payments. So I'm just going to run through each of these functions on the menu to give you a feel for what they do. And then we'll have a look at the end-to-end process, the actual payables process, and where B4b fits into that end-to-end process. So firstly, we've got some setup functions that we need to consider. Again, this is at a company level. So here we have our extract mappings. And again, this is a one-off setup function per company. And it would normally be a function that we would restrict from normal user access. We wouldn't want normal users coming in and changing the mappings. And all we're saying here is that all payments on Fabricam Inc., irrespective of currency, will be processed through one of our JP Morgan formats. And here we can utilize the wildcard character so that B4b knows to look in all of the formats for a matching creditor. At a format level, again, we have some setup parameters. So here we can specify primarily the output directory, so where B4b is going to create the bank file ready for upload to your bank. And here the main payment identifier, so the payment reference location, which is normally the invoice number from Great Plains. There are a few options available to us. And here at Remittance Control, we can specify the default text that's going to appear on our remittance document. So we can have our remittance header text, which would normally be your company name and address and contact details, some footer text, We can override the default headings on the remittance if you wish to see alternative text on there. And then finally, if we're using the email system, we can specify the email subject and the email body. So again, format parameters is a function that once configured, we would look at restricting access for normal users. So the final part of the configuration in B4b is our bank details. And this is the key concept around B4b, is that all of the bank detail information for your own payment account and for all of your creditor accounts that are going to be paid through this system must be maintained within B4b. And this is primarily due to the fact that we can't always rely on the host system to collect, maintain, and validate all of the necessary bank information to satisfy the requirements of the particular bank or payment type being used. So if we have a look at your own bank details, so again, this is a form now that's tailored for JP Morgan global wire transfers. And your own bank details relate to your checkbook accounts. So here I've got two bank account details set up in B4b. If I use the binocular lookup, here it's looking at all of the checkbooks that exist within this company in Great Plains. So now here B4b will validate the information to ensure that the data entered meets the requirements for JP Morgan. So own bank details are usually fairly low volume and low maintenance, and so can be set up fairly quickly. Target bank details are for all of your creditors in the system. So here we can see I have a number of creditor bank details already set up. And again, we can see here a bank detail form that's tailored for JP Morgan global wire payments. If we look at the binocular this time, we're looking at all of the creditor accounts that exist within the Great Plains company. So here we can see for global wire payments, we have a number of fields that we need to consider. So payment method, account number or IBAN, bank ID code, and so on. Currency matching, bank charges, any intermediary bank detail routing that might be needed, and finally the contact details of the creditor. If we go back to the main menu and change our format to one of our UK formats for JP Morgan, you can see here initially the form has changed in that the ISO payment currency and country functions are not required for this format. And if we look at the target bank details for our creditors, again we can see here that the form looks very much different. So for a local UK ACH payment through JP Morgan, then the information is very much limited compared to that required for an international transfer. So B4b has country and bank and even payment type specific forms, validation, help files, and so on to ensure that all of the information is captured and validated at the point of data entry to eliminate or reduce errors when actually processing payments through your bank. So when implementing B4b, getting all of our bank details into the system could be a bit of work. However, there is an additional module that's provided with the software, which is our Transfer Manager component, which allows you to create import and export mappings so you can bulk load bank details either directly from Great Plains or from a spreadsheet or any other system. So we can very quickly build an interface to import all of your bank details into B4b. Going forward, we can also then use Transfer Manager to automatically synchronize your key data from B4b back into your Great Plains cards. So this means that you have a single point of data entry into B4b, and then on saving or approving, if the approval module is enabled, the bank detail changes are then automatically written back into the Great Plains cards. So let's just have a look at the approval layer in action. So here I've got one of my UK formats. And if I was, for example, to change the bank account number and sort code and save the changes to the record, then the system is now prompting me for a reason as to why I'm making this change. So now the record has been saved in B4b, and if we just refresh and go back, we can see it's now locked pending approval. So this means I can't make any further changes to the bank account until those first changes have been approved. And it also means I can't make a payment to this creditor as the record is locked and pending approval. So let's just come out of B4b, and I'm going to now log in as my approver. So if the email notification is enabled, the approver would have received an email alert informing them that there was a pending approval request. And within that email alert, it would have included the company, the format, the creditor code, and the reason for the change or the request. So here I can go into the approval module and review my target bank approval requests. And you can see I've got one sitting. So the user was the admin user, and you can see it was an amendment, and here's the reason for change text. From here, the approver can then inquire to see the full bank detail record in view-only mode. So we can see here all of the details. And also we can inquire on the audit data. So from the audit report, we can see that the admin user has changed this creditor, and then here we can see the actual values that have been changed. So the sort code and bank account number, the value before, and the new value, and it was an amendment. So on that basis, the approver can then either approve the changes or reject the changes, which will return back to the originator for further amendment. So here I'm going to go ahead and approve the changes. So on approving these changes, it clears my approval log. It will email the originator of the change, informing them that the approval has been made, and it will unlock that record so it can then be used in our payment run process. The final point of that approval process is we could use Transfer Manager, as I said, to then automatically copy the updated record back into our Great Plains cards to maintain synchronization between the two systems. Okay, so now let's have a look at the end-to-end process. So here we're looking at GP10. I've got a number of transactions already in the system. So what we're going to do is go ahead and build our purchasing batch. Okay, so the first batch that I want to create is our Gbp Batch. So it's a computer check by EFT, and I can select here my JP Morgan GBP bank account. So obviously within Great Plains we have to build a batch by checkbook ID and by currency. So here it's going to look at all of my ZUK transactions. So I'm going to select payables checks and build my batch. So here if we look at the batch, we can see we've got a number of payments that have been selected and will be paid. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and process the batch within Great Plains. And now we can see it's posting those transactions within Great Plains. So here my payment run within GP is now complete. So the next step is to go directly into B4b, where we can run the extract payment function. And here I've got a shortcut embedded into my Great Plains menus. So if I go to my bank payment shortcut, you can see that it automatically logs me directly into Great Plains. So we're using the authenticated login to route me directly into the B4b main menu. So the first thing we need to have a look at now is extracting the payment data from Great Plains. So we're going to run the extract host payment function. And here we have an option to remove any zero value transactions or voided transactions from the Great Plains EFT payment table. So at the moment there are no zero or void transactions found on the table. And then this then enables the extract and validate buttons. So the recommendation here is to always validate the batch of payments first to ensure that we can identify if there are any errors or issues encountered with the payment data that's going to be extracted into B4b. Primarily any problems would be the bank detail is pending approval, or the bank detail for the creditor is invalid, or the bank detail for the creditor cannot be found. And by validating allows us then to go through the payments within the Great Plains payment area to see if there are any exceptions. So in this particular instance, we can see that all payments were successful. Otherwise, it would have given us an exception report detailing the reasons why payments had been rejected. And again, that could be pending approval, invalid bank details, or bank details missing. So here we can have a look at our payment extraction report. And we can see here we've got 3 creditors that are going to be paid, the bank account number and the invoice numbers. So again, another creditor that's been mapped to our UK format, the creditor name, the IBAN number that it's going to be paid to, and the 2 invoice numbers relating to this payment. And here at the totals page, you can see 3 payments have been accepted. Now, if we had encountered some errors during that validation run, as we're only validating, it then gives us the opportunity to go back to the main menu and either add in the missing bank details or correct the invalid details, or seek approval of any pending approval requests. Here we can see no errors or warnings were found, which means that all of the payments that were posted in Great Plains within that batch will be successfully extracted into B4b. So here we're going to go ahead and extract the batch. This gives us a very similar looking report. So this is our payment extraction report. So now 3 payments have been created, and we can see here we have transactions that have been extracted from Great Plains and mapped through to our JP Morgan UK format. So the final step of the process in B4b is to return to the main menu, and here we're going to select a JP Morgan UK format and then create our output file. So here we just need a few runtime parameters. Again, this is tailored for JP Morgan. So we can put in our value date, so the day you wish the bank to instruct these payments. A reason code. Now the reason code in B4b allows us to construct a payment description that's going to be included within the bank file and pass through onto the beneficiary's statement, so that they have a reason for the payment. They know who it's come from and what it relates to. And most commonly, we would either use reason text only, so you can put in your company name, or reason text plus the invoice numbers. But there are a number of different combinations available to us. So here we might put in my company name, and then finally the output file that you wish to create. So we can now validate those parameters. So this will just check that the date is correct, the file can be created where specified, and it does not already exist. And that's enabled our create bank file function. So here our file was produced in the specified output folder. 3 records have been processed, and we get one final report out of B4b, here detailing, in this case, the creditor code, the sort code, the account number, and the payment amount. So the file was created, and we get one final total of the payments included in that file. And again here, if the remittance engine is enabled, At this point, the remittances will be created. So we get a remittance report detailing what remittances have been created. And again, if the email system was enabled, it's at this point that your payment document would be emailed directly out to your creditor to notify them of the payment. So from a payables user perspective, we can see that it's a very quick and easy, a simple, secure and swift payment process within B4b to extract the payments and create the output file. So let's just have a look at that again. This time we're going to do some different currency batching. I'm going to batch two currencies together. So let's go for some US dollar payments from my JP Morgan US dollar checkbook. Okay, so I'm going to build my batch of dollar payments and I'm going to process the batch and post the batch. Okay, so here it's posting my US dollar transactions. And then finally, I'm going to do a batch of euro payments. And select my euro checkbook. And build my batch of euro payments and process these. So I've now created two batches of payments through Great Plains. So we have euros and US dollars that have been written to Great Plains payment area. So here we can extract those payments. And if we validate, again, no errors were encountered, so it's gone straight through to the payment extraction report. And here we can see now some US dollar payments with the invoice numbers relating to those payments, and we have some euro payments. These transactions have been matched through to our JP Morgan global wire format. So based on our extract mappings that we looked at, and also based on where the creditor is maintained in B4b, and the match currency that we specify determines how the transactions are matched through to the bank details. And here we get a breakdown per currency. So we can see a number of US dollar payments have been made and a number of euro payments. The UK payments that we extracted previously have been cleared down from the EFT table by B4b. So on successful extract, the Great Plains payment area is cleared down to avoid any duplication of payment. So obviously those transactions do not appear on this report again. So here no errors or warnings were found, so we can go ahead and extract the batch. So payments have been extracted into B4b, and here we can go back to our main menu, select our payment format, and create our output file. So now in this particular format, we can see that we have multiple checkbooks within this one combined batch. And obviously the JP Morgan file does not support multiple payment accounts within one file. So this means we need to create an output file for each of our checkbooks. So here we can go into the create bank file function and select which of the checkbooks we're going to process first. So let's do our US dollar. I can validate my parameters and create my US dollar output file. So here $8 payments included, and here is my breakdown of my US dollar payment file. And again, we could have some remittances produced at this point. So now it's prompting me to process my remaining payments. So this time it will be our euro payments. So we can validate and create our euro payment file. And here we have our batch of euro transactions. So now our bank files have been created. So the next step would be to go, in this case, onto JP Morgan Online and then import those files. Once the files have been uploaded, then the normal approval and confirmation stages would be applied within your online banking system before the funds are then finally released for transfer. So B4b is a very simple, swift and secure payment module. And as you can see from a payables perspective, it's 2 extra functions to extract the payment data that you've posted in Great Plains and then create the output file in the required format for import to your bank.
Should you require any further information on B4b for Microsoft Dynamics Great Plains, please feel free to contact us on the number below or visit our website at www.professionaladvantage.co.uk.